Hi, I'm Jennifer with Martingale, and today I have a trunk show of quilts to show you from the book Plain and Fancy Quilts by author Dawn Heese. You might know Dawn from her business name, Linen Closet Designs, and she named her business after her grandmother, who had a linen closet filled with vintage quilts. I love that, and she shares in the book about how she has such great memories. She's a fourth generation quilter in her family, and she is inspired by all things vintage and antique when it comes to quilts. So the cover quilt is this beauty here, and inside the book there are 12 patterns for cozy patchwork and applique throws. This quilt is all patchwork, but you might be able to see it has this beautiful big stitch quilting in it. This quilt is called Padstow, and it actually only has 6 different blocks in it. It looks like quite a bit more, and only because of Dawn's clever use of fabrics, where she mixes in different prints to make the block look a little more make-do and vintage. And I absolutely love both the simplicity of it and the complexity of her design. So this one is called Padstow. You'll notice as we go through these that a lot of the quilt names are inspired by British villages and places where Dawn says she loves to imagine a stone cottage and these quilts sort of living in that cottage and you nestled into a comfortable chair enjoying them. So this beauty is called Abby, and it is the coxcombs and currants block, and just absolutely stunning applique. And if you're a reticent appliquer or you've always wanted to learn applique and you weren't sure that you could learn how, Dawn can absolutely teach you in her book. She doesn't like to spend a lot of time prepping. Her quilts are done with a needle turn applique method, but she doesn't like to spend all her time prepping. She likes to get right to it and start appliquing. So she shares with you how she gets these beautiful circles, how she puts all of her applique shapes together. And this quilt is called Abby. It is absolutely stunning. I love the polka dot background she chose for her applique. I would be very at home wrapped up in that in my cozy cottage. Another quilt is called Lichens, and a very muted palette she's chosen here with these soft greens and a little bit of pink undertones to some of the prints. And if you're looking to create that vintage look in your quilts, for sure the tone of the fabrics that you choose can help you get a vintage look with a new quilt. And if you're looking to practice your applique shapes, this leaf would be a perfect one because you get to practice it over and over and over again, and I bet you'll be so improved by the time you work your way all the way around. The Lichens quilt. I love the story of this quilt. Designers, they're like the rest of us quilters. This quilt is called Wedding Plans, and the reason it's called Wedding Plans is Dawn said when she started it, her original plan was it was going to be a single wedding ring quilt block, and as she started moving things around and the shape of things changes, this is where she ended up. So Wedding Plans, it has this border at the top, and then it repeats that border at the bottom of the quilt as well. So beautiful blue and yellow toned throw. Marianne is the next one, and I think of this as sort of a pomegranate block shape if you look at old antique quilt blocks, but it's a 4-block applique in the center, and then the pieced patchwork border around the outside. Absolutely stunning. But these are fairly simple shapes. They're bigger shapes and easy if you want to dip your toe in the applique water. It's a good place to start. Another good place to try applique if you haven't done much of it is with wool, very forgiving. And this quilt is called Harlequin. She's backed it with wool as well, and you can see maybe from the back side a little bit better the scalloped border and just a running stitch along the edge. She's used a few embellishment stitches and looks like maybe some Valdani thread or embroidery floss to finish that off, but a lovely table mat. Scalloped edge border on this next quilt is called Oakum. And you can't see it on the screen, but it has a woven as the background, which has a very subtle tone to it. Dawn shares with you how to finish the scallop border. So that would be beautiful across the front of a cabinet, or if you have a big table. Here's another wool piece. This one is called Fern Hill, and it was inspired by an antique rug. I think in the book this one is showcased above a mantle, but you could use it also on a tabletop or on a shelf if you have a wider space. But beautiful little applique pieces, the scalloped edge, and again she finishes the back so that it's nice and neat. This next one is a mix of wovens as well, and it is called Flagstones. So if you look carefully at this, you'll see that the backgrounds of the blocks are all scrappy. They're each different, but do you notice also that the 4 borders are made with 4 different background fabrics? So a great chance to use up scraps if you have it, but also add that subtle sort of make-do sense that antique quilts sometimes have by mixing up your border prints, and at each border those change. Prepare to just have your breath taken away with this next quilt. And this is called Evandale. A gorgeous applique, and this looks kind of like a whole cloth quilt. Not quite tall enough to hold it all the way up, but I'll try to get so you can see. It's actually made in 3 strips, so it's not a whole cloth quilt. It makes it a little bit easier to manage. It's done in 3 horizontal strips. Gorgeous applique flower, the eagle shape, the leaves, very classic. And again with the scallop border, and I love that she chose to use the dark deep blue along the binding edge to just give it that really beautiful finish. So that's called Evandale. If you're a fat quarter collector, and many quilters are, this is a quilt that makes the best use. It's a fat quarter friendly quilt, and she calls it hopscotch. And again, with that scallop border finish, you can get some practice on that and make a lovely quilt. And last but not least, this is called the Latchley Runner. And it could be used as a bed runner if you wanted to add blocks to it. If you have a wider bed, you could do that, or it could also be used as a table runner. And it's a combination of a cotton background and wool applique. So it uses both wool and cotton and makes a beautiful, colorful bed runner or table runner. So look for Plain and Fancy Quilts by author Dawn Heese wherever you buy books, or at shopmartingale.com.